How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. By Bill Gates. How we make things. Concrete is a miracle of engineering. It's rust-resistant, rot-proof, and non-flammable, making it a vital part of modern buildings and even the Statue of Liberty's pedestal. Thomas Edison even dreamed of making concrete homes and furniture. Every year, America alone produces over 96 million tons of cement, one of the main ingredients in concrete. Steel is another material we rely on heavily. It's strong, cheap, durable, and infinitely recyclable. Insert steel rods inside a block of concrete, and you've got a magical construction material. Reinforced concrete is used in most of our buildings and bridges. We use as much steel as cement, and China installed more concrete in the first 16 years of the 21st century than the United States did in the entire 20th century. It's important to appreciate the materials that make our world possible. The importance of materials. Materials like plastics, glass, and aluminum are essential to modern life. They're in everything from our phones to our cars and even our clothes. But the environmental impact of producing these materials is significant. They're responsible for about a third of all emissions worldwide. To address this, we need to find ways to produce these materials without emitting carbon. Let's take a closer look at steel, concrete, and plastic. The challenge with steel and cement. Steel, for example, is both strong and easy to shape when it's hot. But producing steel emits a lot of greenhouse gases. We need to find ways to reduce emissions while still producing the materials we need. It's a challenge, but it's a challenge worth tackling. To make steel, iron ore is melted at high temperatures in the presence of oxygen and a type of coal called coke. This process releases carbon dioxide, and making 1 ton of steel produces about 1.8 tons of carbon dioxide. Cement production also releases carbon dioxide. To make cement, limestone is burned in a furnace, and the chemical reaction releases carbon dioxide. The challenge with plastics. Plastics are the newest member of the group, but they also have an impact on the environment. There are over 24 types of plastics, and they range from yogurt containers to waterproof jackets. The United Nations estimates that by 2050, the world will produce roughly 2.8 billion tons of steel, 4 billion tons of cement, and 1.1 billion tons of plastic every year. That's a lot of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere. Plastics are cheap because they're made from fossil fuels. But the carbon in plastics doesn't degrade and can take hundreds of years to break down. This is a major issue as plastics dumped in landfills and oceans can last for a century or more. This can lead to poisoning marine life and other problems. But the carbon in plastics is not bad news in terms of emissions. Because plastics take so long to degrade, all the carbon atoms that go into them are atoms that won't go into the atmosphere and drive up the temperature, at least not for a very long time. Green premiums for materials production. Green premiums arise from emissions during the 3 stages of generating electricity, creating heat, and manufacturing materials like cement, which inherently emits CO2. Clean electricity is costly due to factors like storage and transmission. This poses challenges for countries worldwide. Generating high heat economically relies on nuclear power or fossil fuels with carbon capture, adding costs passed on to consumers. Emissions from steel and cement production are unavoidable with current technology, necessitating costly measures like carbon capture. Green premiums for carbon capture in plastics, steel, and cement vary, but can influence decision-making in industries and public projects. While consumers may not feel the impact directly, Industries facing increased material costs due to carbon capture may struggle to absorb the premiums. Alongside innovations in manufacturing processes, public policies mandating or incentivizing the use of clean materials can drive demand and lower premiums. Reducing emissions in manufacturing. Manufacturing poses significant challenges for achieving carbon neutrality. But companies are exploring innovative methods to reduce emissions. Cement production, for example, can inject recycled CO2 or use seawater to reduce emissions. However, complete carbon neutrality is not yet achievable. Steel production shows promise for reducing emissions through innovative processes like molten oxide electrolysis. Clean electricity is crucial for plastic production, with potential for net negative emissions if combined with carbon capture and sourcing carbon from plants. Material recycling and reduction strategies complement emissions reduction efforts. Innovations in recycling processes and the use of repurposed materials are being explored. The path to zero emissions in manufacturing involves electrifying processes, sourcing electricity from decarbonized grids, employing carbon capture, and using materials more efficiently.